Welcome to The Bridge, Your Health, Your Voice, the official podcast to the University of Maryland, Baltimore School of Pharmacy Patients Program. The Patients Program is the bridge between the community and researchers. This partnership is created to help researchers listen to the community's voice in order to build a bridge to an effective learning healthcare community. Here's your host, Paris Barnes.
Welcome to The Bridge. My name is Paris Barnes, and I'm your host today. I am a female with brown skin. I have burgundy curly hair. I'm wearing a dark green shirt and a colorful necklace. And today we have one of our favorites in the Patients Program, Jeff Wells. Jeff, can you introduce yourself and let our listeners know how you visually appear?
Hi, I'm Jeff. Have been a friend of the Patients Program, and more importantly, the Patient Program has been a friend of mine for, maybe 10 years. I'm a older white male with gray and green hair and a mustache. I'm wearing a blue shirt.
All right. So we like to start our podcast with a little bit of an icebreaker just to kind of get you warmed up. So I'm going to ask you a funny random question. Um, what is the most chaotic good thing that you've done lately?
It could be either considered good. Almost everything that I do is chaotic. And but earlier today, I was talking to a gentleman at an adaptive sports event and let him know that uh, my niece had gone to school where he had gone to school. And then I showed him a picture of her with the nose and mustache and glasses. Just and let him know, can you see the family resemblance? That everybody in my family is ridiculous and they match my energy. So she had the glasses, nose, and mustache on. When I said, "Don't we look like twins?" I'm the one on the left.
Chaotically wonderful. I love it. All right. So I'm going to read like a mini bio about Jeff, and then I'll jump into the questions because the bio has quite a bit to do with how we're going to let this thing flow today. So Jeff Wells began a brand new phase of his life in 2023 after he served quite a few years. So from 1981 till 2003 as a correctional officer for the state of Maryland's Division of Corrections. So after recovering from some life events, some trauma, infections, surgery, all the things, Jeff decided to kind of change his perspective and shift his career into patients, advocacy, and representation. So that is so noble. So I want to kind of go a little bit back after that. So he went from working full time to being a full time patient advocate. What does that look like for you in terms of your journey?
The the biggest change happened when I quit being in charge and tough and able to do everything. I wound up having a stroke, a very severe stroke, and it was very debilitated. And I needed round the clock care. It just basically, I was a baby learning to walk, learning to talk. Um, I had to be fed, I had to be clothed, and had to be taken care of. And I was no longer in charge. And it took not just the caretakers, but also there's people to help me find a path forward. I could not go back. Um, Life only goes in one direction. There's no rewind. So to be able to find a way forward when those bad thoughts come in the middle of the night, somebody told me you can make any decision you want. Just wait till dawn. Nothing as dark as it is in the middle of the night. So that was given to me. So let me give that to somebody else. I can't tell someone else how to feel. I can just say life was worth going forward to me. Um, I say it so often that one of the groups made a T-shirt for me with by saying, "Life is different, but it is not over." And the more I think about it, the more I realize life is different every day for everybody. Sometimes it happens so gradually we don't realize it. I get older, but it's not until I can't do things that I thought I could do that I realize it's happening. Um, Anyone with kids, know they grow up so incredibly fast. You want them to be 6 months old for about a year and a half, 2 years. You don't want them to get out of first grade for 7 or 8 years. Man, it just overnight it seems like things are changing immediately. Um, as we get older, it slows down, but the change still happens. And then when we notice it, it's so dramatic. I was tough, but the hospital or shock trauma saved my life, but they forgot to make me 25. And now I'm 65. And I keep thinking I should be 25. Well, I can't do those things, but learning how to accept the reality and to learn with it and to thrive with it, to enjoy. That was what was given to me. And probably the person that did the most to help me was a 4-year-old of my best friend's son. Came into the bed and said, "Oh, Jeff, you're still sick?" I said, "Yeah, buddy, I'm been sick for a long time." He said, "That's okay. Gotta use the cane." I sharpened it up. He walked around with my cane. Kids don't care. How yours, how you are. Who yours, what they care about.
That's amazing. And while you're talking, it got me to thinking about a story that one of our team members told us about some of your advocacy and how it really made a huge impact with some protocols with NIH. So they talked to us about how you made mention of something what seems really small, but it was a big, big, big impact in terms of accessibility and screen readers. Would you be willing to tell our listeners a little bit about, first of all, what you do in terms of the IRB? And then second, what that change was that you made a recommendation for, so that all of the things that you advocate for, we make sure that everybody has access to them.
After getting involved in some orthopedics research with the surgeons at Shock Trauma, it led to me being on a review committee, the Data Safety Monitoring Board, looking at the statistics of study. And then that led me to joining the review board, the institutional review boards for University of Maryland, and now with the NIH. And part of my what I do there is look at studies and look at protocols. I'm a non-scientist, but because I had a background in the prison, I'm also prisoner representative, looking at things that are for people that don't have free will. And as I read the consent document, the thing that the patient will see or will be presented to them to tell them about the study so they can make the decision, I generally use the read aloud function. They're written in Microsoft Word and it can read it to me. And that way I can maintain focus for a longer duration. Once I get 7 or 8 pages into, I'm drifting off thinking about things. But if it's reading along and highlighting it, I can maintain focus. And it had certain um, little little things that I noticed, little idiosyncrasies, but they were just kind of funny. Like they were talking about going to a hospital, and it pronounces the abbreviation ST, Street. So it's on Street Paul Street. Well, in Baltimore, we know that's St. Paul, but that's just something that was curious to me. But then I noticed that it would pronounce the abbreviation IV as the Roman numeral 4. And I was reading along, and okay, it's 4 medications, but okay. And then somebody told me that the same technology that the read aloud uses is the same technology that screen readers for persons with blindness or with low vision use. And that made me realize that could be, it could allow the information to be misinterpreted or not give the right information. We're going to give you 4 medications versus we're going to give you an IV medication that could mean and not even realize it's a mistake. I'm looking at it so I see what the intent was. But somebody that is just hearing it doesn't doesn't have that context. So I mentioned that in a meeting, thinking that this is probably something everybody knows. And others were like, wait a minute, this is I'm not sure anyone else knows this. And that idea of our voice matters and having people explain things in a way that makes sense matters. So they took it to the meeting of all the heads of the NIH different institutes, so that any study that was directed towards persons with blindness or any recruiting, you need to listen to the consent document, not just read it to, and be aware there are accommodations. If you separate I and V with a space or use periods, it reads it as IV. But just being aware that there are little idiosyncrasies, um, and then being comfortable enough to be willing to share my thoughts, to be that voice, and to realize that I don't need to be ashamed that I don't understand some of these technical medical words, but that having them to explain it to me. If it doesn't make sense to me, it's not good enough. It has to make sense at a plain language level so that anybody can understand it and you don't have to explain, well, what that means is. No, if you have to explain it, then you shouldn't have written it that way.
I
So
can Yeah.
I'm really on the health literacy, makes sense to people.
I love that. Even as a mom of a little one, um, he's not reading an IRB, obviously, but it is still important that those little things be taken into consideration because as we work with him with his own literacy, we do the voice to text and the closed captioning and things like that so that his brain understands the words that we're reading versus the words that are said. We appreciate the fact that you took your time and expressed that that was a need that needed to be fixed. And they seemed welcome and open to fixing it. And that's not something that would have necessarily been done unless you had a seat at the table to say it. So that's what makes us love you so much. We're grateful to have you.
One of the things that I was told that really resonated with me is don't try to be perfect because when you're perfect, then you quit trying. Just try to be better. So maybe this is what we did yesterday, but what can we do better tomorrow? I play bingo with patients on Sundays. There's no therapy on Sundays, so I go in to the rehab hospital and spend time. Sometimes just walking around and talking. They don't want to come out, but by the second or third week, they're so bored. We want to just come out, and our brains are going around in a circle. And bingo, a simple game, um, but it provides a distraction. Maybe your brain goes back to it, but at least we've had a conversation. And I played one time with a lady that was deaf. So I would show her the ball that came out of the wheel. But the next week, I had printed out all the bingo letters, uh, and she sat next to me and just used a highlighter, marked it. So it wasn't obvious to everybody else that there was an accommodation. So she felt like she wasn't being catered to. A little bit later, I was inviting patients, and there were a group of family members in a patient's room. And I invited, they said, no, we're going to go out to the healing garden. It was a beautiful spring day. So as they were going out, one of them peeled off and said, you know, appreciate you asking, but she wouldn't be able to play anyway because she's blind. And the next week, I had a couple of Braille video boards. She had left, but a few months later, a, a patient was there and her daughter was moved to me. The daughter was blind. The daughter was able to play. And uh, then mom made sure that the braille board was also in writing so we could make sure that the daughter didn't cheat. Just it allowed that little family still dynamic to exist, to be better than it was yesterday. I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be better.
I think that's why we do the work that we do in life as well as here in the patients program. It's our ultimate goal just to make life better for everyone, like in research and academia and all the things we do. That's why we do the work. We want everybody to be included. We want everybody to feel great about it. And we strive for a level of excellence that only can be done when everybody is included. So that's just it's not even a small feat. I think that's such a huge thing that you took time out of your day to go and get a braille board so that they can do a simple life pleasure of playing bingo. That's huge, Jeff. That says so much about your character and so much about your advocacy beyond research. So you have been a friend. I think it's family. Honestly, I can call you Uncle Jeff, but you've been a family member of the patients program forever, right?
friends or the family you choose.
That's right. That's right. So also, that's just
Yeah.
been in the patients program for a long time helping us out. So what keeps you coming back to us? What helps you come back and continue to work with us in all the capacities that you do?
Every time we meet someone new that sees that their horizon is higher than they were told or they believe, that they're challenged, their whether it's a disability or a medical history or whatever, to realize that, you know, I'm not stuck where I was or where I am right now, but I have the opportunity to for someone to realize that their self-worth um, is of value and to educate, to bring to knowledge. One of the best things that happened to me was one of the first studies that I was involved with in helping the preference study. I didn't know anything about research. I didn't know anything about statistics or orthopedic surgeries. But as they were writing the protocol, they would send it to me. They engaged me very early on. And then one of the PIs who was in charge of answering all of Jeff's questions, and I would call up, say, "What does this mean? And what does that mean?" She was a mother, and she had preteen daughters, and she was used to teaching in a way that didn't make you feel dumb for asking. She was used to leading along, and I was led, and that gift is given to me, of my curiosity being restored, and that's what I could give other people. Um, and just to be able to see someone enjoy life instead of being overwhelmed and consumed by whatever challenge they're facing.
That's amazing. And just so our listeners know, Jeff does this work on a global level. He's not just here doing it in Maryland or wherever he is. He's taking his show on the road. We just got back yesterday from a conference that we did, Patients as Partners, and it was full of a bunch of people from pharma, biotech, researchers, academia, and these people were from all over the world. And Jeff was awarded with an opportunity to speak with these people. So, as we close, I want to get your final thoughts on where you are now with your work. What is something that you're just most proud of today that you've done recently in terms of your work?
I have had the opportunity to do a lot of things, but probably the most important thing is that I am still a volunteer at the bedside, face to face with people that are staring at the ceiling, that are just wondering. And I don't tell people what to do. I just say it can be done. Just take another breath, get through the moment, whether it's a shock trauma with people with horrific situations or people with the most mild consequences, but they are not who they used to be. And that's just a horrible, dark place to be alone. And if I can be there with somebody that's struggling, then I'll, because people were there for me.
That is certainly something to be proud of. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for being a part of our program. Thank you for being a part of my life. Thank you for being a part of research, advocacy, and all the things that you do. And thank you for being a guest on our podcast.
Absolutely. This is always part of who I am because I was given a chance to look forward instead of trying to get back.
Thank you. Awesome. Thanks for joining us on the bridge, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Bridge Podcast. To learn more about the Patients Program, visit our website at www.patients.umaryland.edu.